Hello and welcome, everyone. My name is Manny Castro. I'm the Technical Services Specialist here at Siegel Scientific. In today's session, we'll be covering BarTender 2016's Print Portal. Print Portal is a web-based application that provides an interface for selecting and printing BarTender documents. In this session, you'll learn how to set up Print Portal, navigate the user interface to print documents, and utilize the advanced configuration options to control user security. BarTender Print Portal gives you a web platform to select and print your labels. You can enter data to print on these labels, select records, change the number of copies or serial numbers, and select the printer that you want your labels to print to. You use a simple user interface to simply click and print the label that you need, and this is without having to have BarTender installed on the machine that you're opening the web page from. So we'll go through a few slides and just talk about some of the concepts and features of BarTender Print Portal, and then we'll dive into the user interface itself and see how all that works. The labels can be located in different directories. It can be local to your server, or they can be saved in Librarian as well. We also have different print methods available, which we will cover shortly. On the server that your machine, on the machine that's hosting your print portal though, before you even begin, there's a few things that you want to make sure you have set up beforehand. So you'll want a compatible version of Windows running with IIS installed. Once that's done, you can install BarTender 2016. You do want to have, or you are required to have an enterprise automation license. And from there, after you install it and you make sure that you've selected Print Portal as well as part of the install process, the first thing you're going to want to do is get a connection to your BarTender system database. If you don't have a SQL Server, what that means is that you'll want to install an instance of the SQL Server Express that we have that comes with BarTender, and make sure that you configure that connection. Print Portal actually stores some configuration settings in the system database, and that's why that connection is required for Print Portal to function. So once we have Print Portal up and running, you're able to manipulate the experience a little bit with the administration options offered. You can enable security and force users to log in to your print portal. Then based on who they log in the folders available will vary if that's what you set up for. Or you can completely deny unauthorized users from accessing print portal, or you can lock them out of the administration section as well. Setting standard and admin users further limits what a user has access to. So for example, an admin user can create a global printer that can be used by any person or any user that logs into the print portal. Standard users can only create printers to be used in their session. With the print settings available, you can select from various print methods as well. So any unused method can be disabled via the print portal's admin page. So if you're not using client-side printing, you can just disable it. Or if you don't want your users to be able to print to PDF, you can disable that via the admin page. So we have server-side printing and client-side printing, which we will explain in a second with some diagrams. And then we have built-in PDF printing as well. So you simply check a box in the admin console, and once that's done, your users will then see the option to print to PDF. You can also enable cloud printing using the Zatar service. And what that is a service online where you can set up your printers. You add printers to your account if you have an account set up with Zatar. And once that's all configured, you can actually direct print portal to those Zatar printers, and that gives the ability to do some cloud printing as well. So let's explain server-side printing and client-side printing. These are often misunderstood or not so easy to understand, I should say. So let's just explain what each means and how that works so we can get a better understanding once we actually go into the user interface. So server printing on the left is when you print from print portal to a printer that is configured on the server itself. This method does not require any kind of client-side drivers, add-ons, or anything like that to be installed. You simply browse to the web page, you select the label that you need to print, and select the printer that's installed on your server and print to it. So this can be a network printer as well. It doesn't necessarily have to be like a USB printer, as long as it's installed and configured correctly on the server. So now client-side printing is a little bit more of a powerful feature and a little bit more complex. So client-side printing allows you to print to a printer that's connected to the client machine. So the machine with the web browser open. So BarTender still does not have to be installed on the client side. And all you need to do is have a matching driver. So if you have driver A on client PC and driver A on the web print server, after that, all you need to do is have the BarTender web print service installed. And we're going to walk through how that's all set up as well. But pretty much those are the only requirements there. And thereafter, as long as those things are in line, you can actually print to a printer that's directly connected to a machine on your client side, regardless of where that your print portal is. Oh, it seems like we have one question there.
All right. Looks like the first question we got here. Does the PDF printer count against one printer license in the license server?
Yeah, it does. So if you do use a PDF printer, that is going to count as a printer in the license server against your license.
And to kind of follow up on that question, also every client-side printer also counts against a printer license. And what kind of warning messages would you get if you go over the printer license count?
Even when we're printing through BarTender Print Portal, we still have that same kind of licensing model where each physical printer equals its own entry in the license server. So yeah, if you're using 3 physical printers, you're going to see 3 different entries for that particular printer. And we do have at the bottom of the page, so after you hit print, you will see where it returns error messages to you. So that gives the user or the end user the ability to see, or at least a clue as to what actually went wrong if they don't get their printout or if something does go wrong. Okay, so it looks like that was the only question that we had there. So let's go ahead and get started and start talking about how all this works, what it all looks like in the actual print portal user interface. So when we first install the software, we'll want to go ahead and go into our system database setup, and this is actually in the administration console. So what we'll want to do is we want to make sure that we're connected to a database or to our system database, right? So here we see that we're connected to the local instance and the status is connected. So we're ready to open up our web page. Now, here in the administration console, you also manage your security options, which we will visit, and then also your other things like other admin tasks like integrations and your services. So now let's go ahead and open our print portal. So let me set that out. So just when you first open Print Portal just out of the box, you're going to browse to it. It's going to be localhost/bartender, and it's going to take you to the landing page of Print Portal. You can also access it via the start menu of the server itself. Now, if you don't have BarTender installed, then you'll just want to make sure that instead of localhost, if it's still within your network, that you have the actual machine name there, not localhost. So this is what these are our first available options right off the bat. We can go, the 2 main ones that we're going to be concentrating on today is the actual print portal and the administration settings. So first, let's just go ahead and go into the print portal. And if we see here, we have our labels available, and these are actually the sample labels that come as part of Print Portal when you first install it. You're able to search or hit the drop down, change the way that the icons look. So if you need a detailed view or larger or smaller icons, this is how you would go about that. And from there, it's as simple as clicking a label to print. We're going to go ahead and if we just try to print this label, we'll see that we'll get any dialogues or any user prompts that come up at print time. and from there it would actually print. So now that's the out-of-the-box experience there. What we really want to pay attention to is how much you can configure this and how much you can change all this. So if we go back to our landing page there and we go into the administration settings, one of the first things that we can do right off the bat is that we can add multiple directories now. So let's say, let me copy over a directory that I have. And we're going to hit OK. So now when we go back to our print portal, just by, and I should explain my steps there, all we did was went to the root folders. We clicked on the icon to add the folder. We pasted in the folder directory. So this can actually be a network directory as well, or we can set it to be a directory in Librarian. It doesn't have to necessarily be just the install directory like we have here, or excuse me, the location where print portal is located like we see there. And from there we give it a name and we hit OK, and that creates the actual folder. We can change the order of these folders by clicking on these arrows as well. So we created a new folder there, we gave it a directory, and we hit OK. So now when we go back into our print portal, we actually see multiple directories there. So if we need to organize them out, we need to we have multiple departments or a scenario like that, then you're able to name each folder accordingly. And it does get a little bit more flexible from there, but let's just go ahead and try to print one of these labels and see, so we can see what the print dialogues look like. So with BarTender 2016, we have a lot of new print dialogues available, excuse me, data entry form options available. So we have like the record picker. We're able to bring in query prompts as drop downs, or query prompts and use them as a variety of different controls. And as you see on screen there, you're able to have things like the query prompt on the same dialogue as just your standard user prompts. So now this all carries over into print portal as well. So if you create a label format that has any of those features from the data entry form, then you're able to use that in print portal as well. And if you have a record picker, like we'll see in a label that we're going to set up once we start getting into the print methods, you can actually still do the live search of your database with the record picker. So we have multiple directories here, and that kind of brings in the question as to what can we do with all this, right? Can we limit users to only one directory or one folder, or how do we set all that up? So for that, what we'll want to do is we'll want to go back to our landing page and then essentially just get back to the administration settings. You'll want to click on the security tab this time, and then you'll want to enable authentication. And it's going to ask us for credentials right off the bat. So if we verify ourselves, we now can set, on our root folders, we now can set what users have visibilities to what folders. So let's go ahead and go back into our administration console and see how all this ties in. So if we go to security, we enable security, and we go back to the user permissions, we see all the basic security features of the software and the available options. Now, if we add a local user, let's say, and this is just a test local user that I have on my machine, if we find the print portal section here, this is where we can actually deny or allow a user to run the print portal. So that just means they're able to open print portal, create printers for themselves, and print out labels. If we check administer as well, then that means that they're able to go into the administration settings and actually start making changes in your admin section. And now these user accounts, they come from uh, Active Directory and the local users in excuse me, that of the server that's running print portal. Okay, so pretty much when I hit add here, it shows me all the local users on my machine, as well as if I'm associated to any domain, it shows me any users that are on the domain as well, and any groups. So even if a user is outside the domain or outside of this machine and they have a login to that you have created for them here, like let's say test user, they're able to log in via that even though they might not have particular access to the network or direct access to the network. So for test user, let's go ahead and make him a standard user, which means he's able to run print portal, but we don't want him to administer anything. We don't want him to have access to anything that he shouldn't have access to. So let's hit apply. And now our settings should take effect when we go back into print portal because it's going to ask us to log in if we did that correctly. We maybe did not hit OK there. Okay, so let's make sure we hit OK this time. Okay, so now we see a little bit of a slight difference, which is login. Now, if I click anything, it's going to ask me to log in right away. Okay, so if I go in, let's go back to our landing page, and I try to go into the administrative settings, and instead of myself, I'm going in as the test user. It's going to give me an error message that I'm not authorized to access the administration settings. But, however, if I go back, I can still access the label formats and I can still print the labels out. So let's log off of this and go back into our admin settings. And then this time, we're going to actually be allowed in because I'm logging in as myself. And let's say I'm the only one that I want to be able to see this particular documents directory. I think it's okay if my test user sees print station 2, but documents, that's really, he has no business in there. So let's go ahead and hit OK. Let's log off. And let's go back in as that test user. And let's see what our user interface looks like. And if we did that right, we now see that we only have one directory. So now what this really does is, in the past, what you had to do is you had to create multiple websites if you wanted to have this kind of behavior. You would create multiple pages in IIS, and then each department or each person that had a different view or needed a different view for whatever reason would each go to their own URL. So this kind of gives you a little bit more control, and it also simplifies it much more. You can have as many folders as you need there, and you can add users or groups to those folders, and from there they will have visibility to only what you want them to have visibility to. And they're going to be typing in the same URL that everybody else is. The only thing that's going to change is that we now have that authentication feature, which was very highly requested, and that's implemented in BarTender 2016. So now it seems like we have a few questions. So while we're still on the kind of like that security terms and everything, and I don't continue forward, Jasper, if you can you go ahead and start reading them off there?
Is there any functionality available in the client form design that is not available in the print portal?
So as far as functionality goes, in Bartender Print Portal, you're able to print any labels and use any of the forms and the controls that you have in the label design. However, you cannot design labels, so you can't create text objects, resize, and do things that are featured in Bartender Designer.
Does the authentication integrate back to the Active Directory?
Yeah, it does actually. So whenever you add a user, whether it be a domain user or a local user, that's the username and password that we're going to use and that we're going to require if you have authentication enabled.
Do users for Active Directory have to be set up on the local machine that Print Portal is installed on?
They don't have to be local users. They can be domain users or local users. However, they just have to exist. As long as they have the correct username and password wherever they're logging in from, you're able to access the print portal as long as you've configured it as such.
Does it support multiple domain environments?
Yes, if you're able to add that user when you're enabling security in the administration console, you are able to just add the same user as you would like that in Print Portal. That does include a trusted domain. There shouldn't be a reason why that wouldn't work. Let's go ahead and continue on there and keep the questions coming, and we'll go ahead and make another stop uh, in the next section here. So we kind of have set up or talked about kind of like the different kinds of securities available, and then it goes to actually printing and how all that works. So we talked about having global printers and just standard printers for your particular session. Um, so if I log in as an admin, I'll get an option that I won't if I'm standard user. So let's go ahead and try to print any kind of label. So let's say we don't have the printer that we need here available, because if you notice, we just add or remove the printers via this panel here, or excuse me, via by clicking this icon here. So here with this wizard, this is what you will use to add a new printer anytime that you do not see the one that you have available. The three options are the printers connected to my computer. So that's client-side printing. The printer is connected to the web server, and that's actual server-side printing, and the printer is connected to the cloud using Satar. And that's when you would punch in all your email address and password for that Zatar account to be able to pull up those cloud printers. So now, if we set up just the simple one first, which is server-side printing, we get the option to take a look at all the printers that are installed on the server itself. So now these are not what's installed on my laptop or on my work computer or on my desktop, but this is actually what's installed on the server. So now this is the option that we get when we're admins here. We get the ability to allow all users to use this printer configuration. So if I select this and I create this printer, any user that comes in, whether they're admin or a standard user that comes into our print portal, will see it in their dropdown as a printer. Now, if I set this to only use this printer configuration for the current user, then you will only see that option, then you will only see that drop down for this particular printer that we're going to install under your session or for your particular session. So now admin users, they're able to create global printers. Standard users are only able to create printers for their session. Now we can also, if I can take a step back, we can also create printers or add printers to use via the administration settings. So if we go to our printers here on the left, here we see the very same dialog where we can add a printer to use. Now the only difference is when you actually create a printer in the administrative setup, you will create a global printer automatically. So there's no option, as you see, to create one just for my instance or to create a global printer. It's going to be available for everybody. Okay, and by adding that printer there and hitting OK, we should now see it available regardless of what user we access the print portal from. So, and that's how the printers are utilized in Print Portal. You add and you remove them, and we should now have another option there. So we selected the Datamax O'Neill, or we created that one, and we now have that one available. Now this is, though, server-side printing, so it's going to print on the data max that's connected to whatever or wherever that the print portal server is running. If you want to select or if you want to disable any of these methods, so let's say you don't want PDF printing or you don't want a user to be able to use client-side printing, and we also have a couple of different options. You want to go back to your administration settings and we go to printer settings, and here it's just as simple as a few checkboxes. So if you don't want users to print a PDF or anything or any of the other options, you can actually select that here. You can also add a kind of blacklist, if you will. So if you have printers on your servers that you don't want available at all, even to the admin users or anything like that, you just don't want it to be used in your print portal, you can actually select the printer models that should not be available as an option to add. So whenever you do anything, you just uncheck it and you will just want to make sure you hit OK so that those settings save. And now that we disabled PDF printing, when we go back into our label format, we see that we no longer have the option for a PDF printer. So now I do want to go ahead and to simplify things a little bit, I'm actually going out to a external print portal. So now this print portal is not on my machine. I'm actually connecting to it. And for the reason I'm doing that is because I want to talk about client-side printing and how you set that up. So we explained that for client-side printing, what's actually happening is we browse to our print portal. We select the label that we're going to print. And we want to print to a printer that's connected directly to my machine. So let's say it's connected to my desktop and it's connected here via USB. Okay, so I don't see my printer here, so I need to go ahead and add it. So this is what has to be done beforehand. Beforehand, we want to make sure that the print portal server is running, has installed, even if it's just a dummy instance of the driver, but just a matching driver or a compatible driver. So if we're going to use the Zebra 110xi4, we want to make sure that we have a matching driver that we can match to our local printer that's set up on my machine here, my local machine. So since we don't see it there, let's go ahead and add or change a printer. So I don't see my printer, and this time, so remember, we're connected to this this print portal that's not on my machine. I'm going to tell it that the printer is connected to my computer. This is the first time that I'm doing any client-side printing, so we get a little bit of an error message here. So now this is a one-time thing, but what you want to do if you want to do client-side printing is you want to make sure you install our web print service. So that's just a simple service. It does not require BarTender suite or any other component to be installed on the client side. But what this does is by installing this service, it allows you to just open up any web browser on your Windows machine, browse to your print portal, and do client-side printing. So let's go through the setup of that. And you do have to be an admin for this particular part just because you're installing a service. And we'll see a little download pop up for us. And it's going to run through the wizard. There's really no settings or anything that you have to configure or point or direct or anything like that for or when you're doing client-side printing, or excuse me, when you're installing the service for client-side printing. You just want to go ahead and accept, complete, and install. And then we'll see it go through its installation. And our web page there is constantly looking for that service. So as soon as that service is running, you might have to hit refresh on your web page, but it should just actually show up right away. And we see that the error went away right away. So now we're able to actually configure our client-side printer now that we have that service loaded on the client side. So all we did was the printer is connected to my computer. We installed the service, and now we're going to go ahead and continue on through the process. So let's select what printer we need. So this is a Zebra 110Xi 203 DPI. It's located here on my local machine. And then we compare that to, so we have to link that to a whatever driver coincides with that on the server side. So now what we see here now is not what's on my local machine, but what's on the server. So I want to match something up, so I need to match two compatible drivers so that we get our print job out successfully. So that's the one that matches. We can go ahead and hit next, and we can name it as well. And let's hit finish, and then we hit OK. And now we see that as one of our options, and yeah, we see we even get a status there. And this is actually all you have to do from there on out. So now that that service is installed, if I need to add any other printers, it makes it much faster and much easier to do, even if it's client-side printing. It just, the process is much more manageable. So if I want to go ahead and print, we'll actually see any dialogues that we have. And like we mentioned before there, so anything that comes up in BarTender as far as the data entry form, it carries over to the print portal as well. We can do a live search of our database. And then we can print the label out. And this one's going to say currently waiting for status because we do have it set to that COM port there. But otherwise, it would even give us a status as to what's going on with that job. And from there, if we need to print it again, it's that easy. Or if we need to reprint this label or print another label, it's as easy as selecting the next printer and continuing on with your print jobs. And you see that we do have the live search still, even though we are not accessing an instance of BarTender that's local to this particular machine. This is out on the server, but we're still getting the live search and the live view into our database. And there we should see our label. And that's what our label looks like. So we completed the query prompt, we filled out the number of quantities, and we got the data in from our database as well. So I have one more small comment after this, but since I see the questions coming up, I'll go ahead and let Jasper start asking them.
All right. Let's get the first one we got here. What about running Print Portal as cloud servers? Can you run Print Portal on a public web server and still be able to use built-in security settings? And does this require Active Directory?
So for that functionality, there's a few components that come into play there. As a cloud service itself, you can't install just the service. However, if you do have access to a public server or a server that you can remote into and that you can install BarTender on and make it public to or make it internet facing, then you are able to do that. And in that scenario, you would either add the users locally to the server when you log in, or you would use domain users if you have them available or if that machine or that server is part of your domain. However, you would still in the background be required to have the whole BarTender suite installed, or at least the components necessary for the BarTender print portal.
Is there a way to authenticate third-party users that don't have a domain account to use the Print Portal?
The users would have to exist either locally or on the domain. There's no way to add or create new users without them being sourced from one or the other.
Can a user be restricted to a select group of printers to print, or is it just limited to one?
Now, you can't disable the view, so you can't just disable one specific user from having view to a printer or see it as an available option when they go to print. But what you can do, however, is remember if you have authentication enabled, BarTender Print Portal follows the rules of Windows. So anything with like folder permissions or printer permissions, anything like that involved, that specific user will need access to that resource. So if you deny a specific user access to a printer, they'll see an error message when they try to use it if they're not allowed to. And that seems like it's the rest of the questions there. So thank you, Jasper.
So the last thing that I wanted to mention is just because it's kind of something that comes up often when you're setting up your print portal is we have to remember that the print portal is running under a web pool, an app pool, excuse me, and this particular app pool needs to have access to the system database. So if you're getting errors or you have issues with setting up your print portal, and really like the scenario where this would occur is where you have a system database that's not the out-of-the-box SQL Server Express instance that we use. It's more like you're using an existing SQL Server or an existing system database, and that's what you're using for, and that's what BarTender is connecting to. So now if you don't have, if this account, this identity that we see here does not have access to that system database, then we can't access the settings that we need so for the actual web page to run. So that's just something to keep in mind as well when you're setting up your print portal. Okay, so and it looks like we don't have any other questions. Thanks everyone for attending, and I hope you enjoyed learning about BarTender 2016's print portal.